keyword ranking strategies are you currently using? The entire goal for ranking is how many orders can we possibly get through that one specific search term. Now, I know there's a lot of talk in our space around like, oh, target like long tail search variations of the keyword and all that stuff. That does help. It's not going to have the most impact. So the most impact for any ranking keyword is going to be getting orders specifically through that search, getting a lot of orders. So we don't just want one, we want a lot. And also making sure that our click-through rate and our conversion rate are really high on those key terms. So I'll be honest with you, the biggest impact on ranking you can have is really by picking the right keywords. So if your question was, how do I figure out what keywords do I rank on? I would say like look for things that you can afford to spend a lot, i.e. you're not losing money, meaning ACoS isn't like so crazy high that you can't afford it. You want to look for things that you have really good conversion rates. Bonus points if you have good click-through rates here, but I would go for conversion rates over click-through rates. And then you just want to like put money towards that. Now, if you say, how do I rank on this specific keyword, then that question is a little bit different. And I'm just going to tell you like push volume. Now, what I recognize is that me saying, hey, push volume through a one specific search might mean that that's not super profitable. So that's where I'm saying like the real trick is going to lie in the actual targets that you select to rank on. Other things, some pro tips and some pro hacks are more advanced but can be helpful here, is if you have a specific search where it's like crazy expensive and you just don't really have the budget for it. Again, that goes back to keyword selection. Make sure you're selecting keywords where you can afford to spend that budget on it. But if we're on a specific keyword, you want to make sure that you're showing high enough in search that you can really get those good conversions and get those eyeballs on the product. But maybe you can't afford a ton of clicks because there's a lot of clicks and they're really expensive. And use the budget as sort of a lever to cap or meter how much money you are spending for that ranking play. Now, how effective that is going to be how many orders your market is making, and that's relative. So when I talk about trying to get a large amount of orders, it's relative to the other competition that is on that particular search page. Hello, and welcome back to another fantastic episode, hopefully fantastic, of Ask Junglr. This is the time and the place for you to get the answers to your most pressing Amazon ad questions. And yes, I do have a new background. I think last Thursday, it's been about a week since I've been in my new office. I just put back up the sign today, got some more furniture and stuff coming in. So super excited. Technically a new location, although the backdrop probably looks about the same. Mohammed is here and saying, great. Yes, it is great. It is a great and wonderful Thursday. Super stoked to be back here again. If this is your first time joining in, I want to just give you a huge welcome. Also let you know, so hey, introduce myself. My name is Elizabeth Greene. I am one of the co-founders of an Amazon ads agency, hence Ask Junglr and ask us about Amazon ads. We have been managing ads. I myself have been managing ads for over 8 years now, seen a ton of things, seen a ton of algorithm shifts, and we are still actively managing like ton of different brands, which means that we do a lot, we see a lot, as well as we're part of several beta programs. We also have some connections, and we are part of the Amazon Advertising Partner Network, which means that we do have access to a lot of data and information, as well as keeping ourselves up to date with the latest and greatest and the newest. One of those, interestingly enough, I don't know if anyone has messed around with it or seen it, but Amazon is actually allowing you as a brand to purchase a specific share of voice of your own branded terms, which is really cool. Obviously, you still got to purchase it, but that allows you to kind of like earmark your branded terms. That's a new one. It just got rolled out days ago, and we're already in the testing phase with some of our brands. So I will keep you apprised of the performance of that. It will be really interesting. But again, a ton of new things rolling out constantly. And a lot of times with these updates, it's somebody finds a button somewhere, or there's a new thing, or there's a new option, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, how how do I use it, right? AMC, how do I use it? What do I do about it? And so this is the show, the time and the place for you guys to ask your Amazon advertising questions and be able to get answers. And so the format of this, I'm already seeing some questions in the chat, which is fantastic. So the format of this is drop your ad question into the chat, and whatever platform, whatever you are listening in on, I will pull it up. We do a lot of screen shares on the show as well. So if I have a screen share, if I have a resource, if I have a video that I've put out, which I haven't done, I will always make sure that you guys get access to those as well, because I love to give just live demos whenever possible. So with that being said, again, if you have an Amazon ad question, drop it in the chat and let's get going. Recommend you drop it sooner rather than later, though, because I always find towards the end of this program, the chat kind of gets flooded, and it's a first come, first serve basis. So you ask your questions first, you will get your answers first. I promise you that. Here, starting off strong with AMC. Curious how Junglr uses AMC in their campaigns. Can you share some insights on how you leverage AMC for data-driven decision making, and what types of targeting strategies you typically implement? I'm assuming what targeting strategies we implement is attached to AMC question, but if it's just a general targeting question in general, make sure you drop a follow-up. By the way, if I ever say anything and somebody's like, hey, I want more context to the question, context is always great. Feel free to drop that. So let me go back to this first question, and I'm going to push myself down a little bit so you can see me over top of the questions. But the first question was how Junglr uses AMC. So that's a fantastic question. There's actually two ways that you can leverage AMC effectively. One is for strategic Amazon advertising, and I will go over that and the targeting types that are typically used. But the second way is for analytics, and that's where AMC really, really shines. So with AMC for advertising targeting, there are some potential hiccups with that in how you're able to roll out and target the specific audience. What am I talking about? When you target an AMC audience, essentially you attach an AMC audience to your campaign and you give it a placement percentage. Now, with placement percentages, they function very similar to how your typical placement percentages function, in that you can't negatively target a placement. Like, you have to be willing to target all the placements. And so with that in mind, it also means that we will still get other shoppers who are not necessarily a part of that audience. They just it could be any shoppers, and of course we're willing to bid higher for this audience, but that doesn't necessarily mean that our ads will only target that audience. And again, there's a lot of people who try and control placements, just general placements. And so with trying to tightly control placements, unfortunately, we just don't have the ability to do that. There's this idea of low bids, high placement percentages, and the thought that that will only trigger that placements. That's not true. And in fact, that can significantly hinder your impression. So I wouldn't recommend that. And then how we're rolling out these tests is we are attaching the placements. We like adding a new campaign for AMC, and then we like testing with a 20 to 40% placement percentage increase. Keep in mind that to make it worth it from an ACOS, strictly ACOS perspective, but to make it worth it from like an ACOS perspective to have a placement, you have to assume that these shoppers are going to have a higher conversion rate. So the better your audience, the better your AMC placement percentages will perform. So an example is one of the placements that Amazon has is like shoppers who are in market, but that's very much like an exploratory new to brand type audience, which doesn't typically have like a really high conversion rate. So if you haven't run AMC placements before and you're trying to figure out how to get set up, my recommendation is going to be to set up an auto campaign. We like starting these with auto campaigns, and then we will use, it's typically a pre-built audience in there, but it converts. I mean, on our experience, it converts the best on average is shoppers who have added your products to your cart but haven't purchased. And so we like setting up auto campaigns to help capture this audience. Now, in terms of the analytics, that one is honestly, the sky's the limit, but one way that AMC can be particularly powerful is to help you calculate your new to brand and your repeat purchase behavior of customers. Now, this can be extremely powerful, especially if you have, say, like a supplement product or a beauty product or one of those repeat purchase products. I really need to know if my repeat purchases are decreasing. Like, am I losing out? So an example is like we have a supplement brand and they had some inventory issues. And so their subscribe and saves went down. Like that's a huge concern. And so in that case, we probably should be building audiences and targeting people who have purchased before, but they're not on subscribe and save, right? So it's building out those intentional audiences, and that allows you to get way more granular with a lot of your ad strategies. And I'm assuming that answered your question about what targeting strategies you typically implement. Again, I'm assuming this is related to AMC, but if you have any follow-up questions on that, let me know. And then for those of you joining, I noticed we have a few more people joining in. So by the way, the format of this is you drop an Amazon ad question into the chat, whatever streaming platform you are listening in on, and I will pull it up and I will give you the best answer possible to your questions. All right. Your next question is, what would be the best strategy that you find works well for supplement brands? Good question. So there are, it's really what we find in any like difference of a like different categories behave. So example would be like clothing to supplements to baby to beauty. Like there are nuances within these categories, but then there's also like best practices. So what we find is that there's like a core best practice, and then you're layering on certain variations of how you're going to attack this. Okay. So best practices here, which you can absolutely get a hold of if you go to our website. If you go to junglr.com resources and product launch strategy, I would highly recommend you get this product launch strategy. It goes through everything. It goes through keyword selection. And so I'm going to be talking through a little bit of that right now. So your best strategy is going to be understanding where your products fit in the market, where you convert by doing really intense and strategic keyword research. So that is my first thing. You want to go after relevancy first and where your product fits in the market. Here's what I mean. Okay. I am taking a creatine supplement. Okay. There are a bajillion creatine supplements on the market. There's pills, there's gummies, and there is powders, and who knows, maybe there's drinks or something. I don't know. Those are the ones that I know of, right? I am taking a creatine gummy. So that's a subsection of the creatine market. So if I had a new creatine supplement, I would not go after the keyword creatine because somebody could be looking for a gummy. Like that's not my subsection of the market. Okay. So creatine gummies. Yes, I know powders and pills are better. I can't be bothered to take those. I never remember to take them. I love the gummies. So I will take it more if there's a gummy, right? So I'm taking gummies. There are a couple different types of creatine supplements, right? There are ones that are only strictly creatine, or there's the ones that I'm taking that also has like electrolytes baked into it. So there are people who only want the creatine gummy. They don't want any additives. And then there are people who want specific additives to be able to take more with the creatine. And then there's flavors, right? So you need to go down into the layers of the market and where your product fits. And that is really important when it comes to supplements, because supplements can be cut freaking throat. Okay, so that's the first layer, but that's just good practice. How do we layer on specifics for this category? So the one is that testing is insanely expensive, really expensive. And so you need to be strategic with your tests. So if I'm going into a supplement account, I'm not choosing 50 to 100 keywords, because if cost per clicks are $4, I have 100 keywords. To just get one click across all of those 100 keywords is $400. And that's for one click. That's not going to give me enough data. So depending on your budget, you want to be very, very specific and selective with what you're going after. Our typical rule of thumb is 10 keywords. But again, $40 for one click, maybe I got to choose 5, right? You be strategic here. The second thing that you want to do is, with that limited testing, you're going to run very frequent, what we call like micro testing. Again, so if I have a list of 20 keywords, I'm going to test 5. 3 of those work, 2 of those don't. Great. Pause the 2. We got 3. All right, let's add in another 5, right? 1 of those works, pause the other 4, or maybe vice versa. 4 of those work. And we're going to run those frequent micro tests. As soon as I get that data feedback, I want to start making moves like ASAP. So it's really layering on these frequent micro tests allow you to play in more competitive markets. So that's the other layer. And then you had another question here on, is there a way to increase subscribe and save customers? Yes, just run a crap ton of traffic and then just make sure that your subscribe and save is healthy. So this is the other layer that you need to play in this market. Typically speaking, in supplements, your game is not ACoS, your game is total ACoS. Because I can't tell you how many brands I've consulted with where they have a supplement account. They're like, I need to get 25% ACoS. And I'm like, that's just not possible, because the cost per clicks in your market, your conversion rates just aren't competitive. You can run the numbers. You can run what your average CPC needs to be, your average conversion rate to hit those metrics. And you're just like, this isn't possible in your market, dude. But total ACoS being highly profitable is completely possible in the market. And that is due to repeat purchase behavior and subscribe and saves. So I would say increasing subscribe and save customers is just increasing your ranking, increasing your visibility, increasing your sales. And if you do have a healthy subscribe and save coupon, then you will automatically increase the subscribe and saves. With those subscribe and saves, you will decrease the total ACoS over time. And that's the game you're playing in supplements. Another question. Pricey products with 150,000 USD, conversion rate below what percent? What would you recommend pushing top of search placement? If only, typically no. If and only if the conversion rate on top of search shows higher, so it makes sense to push, I would do that. However, in my experience, high price products, your conversion rates typically are better on rest of search. The other pro tip I will give you when it comes to high priced items is that you want to make sure that you are evaluating a longer date range, because what happens in high priced items with the conversion rates really low is you might get like the orders tend to be pretty sporadic. They don't tend to have really high volumes. But when they convert, the numbers are good. So like one day the ACoS is like 50%, the next day it's like 2%, and then the next day you're left 100%, and the next day it's like 5%, and you're like, oh my gosh, what do I even do with this? Like, this is bananas. It's up and down. So you want to zoom out to like a 30-day date range, sometimes a 60-day date range, to really evaluate what's working, what's not, because you're dealing with a low data problem if you zoom in and you look at too low of date ranges. So that would be my recommendation there. Oh my gosh, people are flying into the chat. This is fantastic. We're about halfway through. So again, if you have a Amazon ad question, feel free to drop it in the chat. We'll pull it up. And then we will get to however many we can get to today. But these are awesome questions. All right. I manage a 25K a month Amazon account with more than 500 ASINs and sponsored product campaigns by category. Performance feels unclear due to the volume of ASINs. How can I clarify it? ACOS, total ACOS is 9%. So I will give you a all right, I'm going to give you a tool and I'm going to drop this in the account. So 500 ASINs, honestly, this I would not even consider, well, 500 ASINs is a lot, but for context, we work with clothing brands that have 50,000 ASINs. Talk about bananas, right? So how the crap do you make sure that you are making effective moves in an account that is just at this volume? This is how we do it. So we have a report, and I'm going to see if I can find the report and I will show you. But there's a report that we will oftentimes generate that is, we look at, shoot, can I find it? I don't know if I can find it. We look at the 80/20 in the account. So how much is a particular product driving for us? And then how much are we spending on said items? And that is what we kind of look at to identify where we should be focusing in on the account. And so basically, instead of just looking at ad console, you want to make sure that you're marrying your business data with your sales data. And that's good practice regardless of the size of the catalog, but it becomes particularly important when you have a large catalog because it's really easy to get lost. And so in this case, we have an AI bot that we give away, and I will share, I'm going to drop this link into the chat if anyone wants to get it. It's junglr.com/tacos. TACOS bot. So taco spot. This is a report, so you can get access to an AI tool. I highly recommend you watch this video as well. This goes through the analysis, but essentially what you want to do is, one, if these are child ASINs, it's ideally you're looking at it on a parent level, but you want to look at the percentage of the total sales per product, the percentage of the total spend going to those products. You want to say, like, where do I have a good performing product I'm not spending enough on? Where do I have a product that I'm spending too much on and it's just not driving sales? And then what is the ACOS and total ACOS of those products? And so what you really want to do is you want to go into that report. You could do it like every other week, maybe once a week, and say, okay, where are my problem products? What do I need to focus in on this week? What products are causing me to have issues? And you want to look at, you want to flag, say, like, depending on how much time you're able to spend on it, like maybe between like 3 and 5 products a week. And you just say, all right, I need to go in here and, it's an overspend problem. Okay, I need to optimize that. It's a ranking problem. I need to optimize that. And that report that you can use AI to put together for you will allow you to quickly be able to spot those issues. So I would definitely take a look at that. Do AMC campaigns conflict with other campaigns? I campaign same product, same keyword, or one audience? They technically do a little bit, but in a lot of ways, a lot of times your campaigns will, quote, conflict, but I don't think conflict is the right word. So will a search term potentially appear in more than one campaign? Yes. Is that a problem? In my opinion, no. So, yes, it does happen, but I don't really have a problem with it happening. So there is this, it's kind of a old school idea, to be honest, but there's still some people who use it, which is called search term isolation. So the idea is that a search term should only ever appear or only ever be triggered through one campaign. And if a search term is appearing and is being triggered through more than one campaign, then you have some issues with your campaign structure and you need to like tightly control everything. In my experience in trying to implement a strategy like that, and I only ever tried it a couple times, it just performs like crap. If you run a search term isolation strategy, regardless if we're talking AMC campaigns or just in general, you will drive up your cost per click for whatever reason. I don't know why. And honestly, if you read Amazon's documentation on their match types, they say that the campaign or the whatever keyword, so let's say you have one in an exact match and a phrase match campaign. According to Amazon's documentation, the keyword with the highest bid will be the one that the algorithm chooses to trigger. In my experience, that's not always the case. And oftentimes the exact same search term will trigger in an automatic campaign or a broad match campaign for a much lower CPC. I'm not 100% sure their criteria. Amazon has not released that, but I just know that it happens. So what I have found is that if you're trying to tightly control everything and force the algorithm to only trigger search terms through one specific thing, you miss out on a ton of low cost traffic. And so that will drive up your cost per click, which will increase your ACoS. And so you end up with a count that just isn't performing as well as it could because you're trying to control every single incremental thing that the algorithm does. And so for that case, I would say, yes, there can potentially be overlap, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing. Paulo is saying, thank you from Italy. Thank you as well. Thank you for the question. All right. Looks like questions are rolling through. I will try and get to all of them, which again, if you have an Amazon ad question, feel free to drop it in the chat. I will pull it up. We will get you some answers. That's where all these questions are coming from. And by the way, if any of this is helpful, feel free to give this a thumbs up, a like, because that is helpful for me, for the algorithm, helps more people run across us. And so we can get better questions and you guys can learn more. All right. Another question. Additionally, it would be incredibly helpful if you could create a detailed video guide how to effectively use AMC. It's such a resource. Yes, we do have, and I will find it for you guys. I do have 2 videos on our channel. So if you go to our YouTube channel, which it looks like that's where you're listening in on, if you type in the search bar AMC, you'll find these 2 videos that pulled up. So these are both sort of podcast style videos that I've done, but both of these videos go through recommendations on AMC strategies. So I would highly recommend going and taking a look at those, but definitely noted, I'm hearing a lot of questions about AMC recently. So I probably should go through. All right. Is pricey product with 150 USD suitable to use the bidding strategy up and down, or should I go for top of search, rest of search placements? So what I will say is you never, ever, 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 ever want to combine dynamic up and down with placement percentages. Don't do it. It will come back to bite you in the butt. So if you are using either fixed bidding strategy or dynamic down only, you can test placement percentages. Or if you want to test dynamic up and down. So 2 things. I'm always a fan of going after data. Like data-driven decisions, as much as that like sounds really weird, it means looking at the performance of something and saying, oh, that went well. How do I do more of it? Or, oh, that didn't go well. I should stop doing that. It's like basically what it is. So with placement percentages, I am not a fan of starting off using placement percentages. Like I would never go into an account and be like, across the board, your top of search works. So now every single campaign needs to get top of search placements. I wouldn't do that. What I would do is I would launch the campaigns, I would run campaigns, and then I would say, okay, fantastic. Top of search is doing really well in this one specific campaign. So I'm going to test top of search placements. And I am a fan of the iterative approach to placement percentages. What does iterative mean? It means you change by a specific number. Example here is we would do like a 5%. If something is working really well, I'm going to increase it by 5% and I'm going to wait a week and say, go back and check it next week. Do these placement percentages improve the performance? Yes. Fantastic. I'm going to add another 5%. And I would adjust like that in increments with testing. I would not say like, oh, top of search, rest of search across the board. Now, should you test dynamic up and down bidding? In my opinion, yes, because one really interesting thing that we have observed is that over the last, I don't know, time frames, like 6 months, over this last year at some point, we have noticed that dynamic up and down bidding has started to work really well. Now, I used to be an absolute dynamic up and down bid hater. Like I was like, never use it. It's horrible. The performance is crap. It never works. It always wastes your money, whatever. However, again, I am fine with saying that we found out something new, or that's why it's so important to, like, even if you think something is true, to always test theories, because things change all the time. The algorithm changes all the time. And one thing that it seems to be doing is it seems to be understanding shopper behavior way better than it used to. So what is dynamic up and down bidding, and how does the algorithm getting better understand the shoppers? How has that improvement made dynamic up and down bidding perform better? Here's how. So originally, if you read the if you go back and read the documentation of dynamic up and down bidding, it says you will give Amazon's algorithm the ability to up to double your bid. So say we have $1 bid, now we're bidding, Amazon can build it up to $2 if we determine that the shopper is more likely to convert. So they're saying like, okay, if we have a better potential of converting, then we could be more aggressive. But because that better conversion rate is going to offset a higher cost per click, then we're still going to make money in the end, right? So in theory, I always said, I was like, in theory, this sounds fantastic. Like Amazon's, it's not based on the search term. It's not based on the placements. It's based on the individual shopper performance, which is wild if you think how quickly the algorithm has to take into account all of these factors and calculate things. Like it's insane the amount of data analysis and processing they do, like in the fractions of a second. I digress. Okay. So I always used to say like, yeah, this would be fantastic if Amazon can increase my conversion rates, like, and I'm going to allow them to spend more to do this. Like, yeah, let's go. But what we found is that the conversion rate difference when we had dynamic down only versus dynamic up and down just didn't it didn't convert miles better than any of the other targeting types or bidding strategies, excuse me. And so for that reason, I was like, never, ever use it. But in doing account analysis recently, so I do a crap ton of account audits for like other brands, and I also we run internal audits all the time. Like we're always auditing our own work as well. And so when we're looking at this recently, bidding strategies is one of the things that we look at. And what we found is that the conversion rate differences between dynamic down only and dynamic up and down, or fixed bids and dynamic up and down, in a lot of cases, the conversion rates were double when you use dynamic up and down bidding. So that was a very long-winded answer to say I would test dynamic up and down bidding, and then see if it works. If it doesn't work, do dynamic down only. And if you're wondering about placement percentages, one, don't stack placement percentages with very dynamic up and down bidding. But if you're still using, say, like dynamic down only, I would simply take a look at how is this individual placement in this specific campaign performing. And then I would use an iterative method of adding an extra, 5 points. So I'm not saying like increase by 5%. I'm saying go from like 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15. That's what I mean by iterative. That's how I would do it. Great question here. Are there any softwares to help, such as Perpetua or Trellis? There are many softwares to help. It really just depends on what you're looking for. So a couple good ones. So one, full disclosure, I have no skin in the game. We use our own internal software. We use an algorithm that we have developed over the past 4 or 5 years. It is rock solid. We're actually getting ready for a new upgrade this next week. So we're constantly tweaking it and evaluating it. Two blessings there. One, we have complete control over everything that happens. And then two, I don't have to pay software costs. So, but it depends on what you want. So if you want a more hands-on approach to Amazon advertising, if you like getting your hands in the data a little bit more, but you want like a semi-automated solution, which honestly I think is really rock solid. I really, really like Ad Labs. That's a fantastic solution, a really low cost solution as well. I do have an affiliate code if you want to use it. It's Junglr. I think you get a couple months free. So maybe you try that. Another one, if you really are wanting to push into DSP, if you have a lot of DSP, you want AMC analysis, you want strong analysis, and also the ability to code your own algorithm. Intent-wise is a really good software for that. Again, it's getting into a little bit more enterprisey, but it's really strong on the data analytics and like AMC and DSP. Trying to think. Trellis, you mentioned Trellis. Trellis is a great one. That one has a lot of AI automated implementation. So that one's a little bit better if you want to leverage AI. I do like how they have guardrails on their AI. So in terms of AI solutions, they're probably the best on the block. To be perfectly frank with you, not a huge fan of AI, but that one is if you want like a little bit more hands-off ability. And they also have pricing software in there, so that can be helpful. Perpetua is great. They're going a little bit more in the way of, I think, Perpetua, PackView. Not a fan of Perpetua, to be honest. Not a fan. I don't like the way they break up things. Every single Perpetua account that we have audited has come to us. Again, most of the time when I have people having negative experience with software, it's because they're coming to me because the software hasn't worked. Perpetua is one of those. I'm not a huge fan of the way their algorithm works or the way that their campaign setup works. To be honest, I think it's pretty crap. I could be wrong. I also think there's certain softwares out there that like when you disconnect the software, it will like pause all of the campaigns that they created, which in my personal opinion is like a complete dick move. Like you literally have to go out of your way to do that. Dick move. Perpetua, last I checked, last time we had an account disconnected from Perpetua, they do that. So I'm not a huge fan of that. But I'm trying to think what other ones are good out there. PackView is good. It's more on the expensive end. You get a lot of granularity with that one. So lots of options I threw out there. But for me, it's like it's finding out who like works. Like again, if you want a semi-automated solution, they're a little bit more scrappy, hands-on, more cost-effective. Ad Labs all the way. If you want like the big, more enterprise data analytics, DSP, AMC, intent-wise, Trellis if you want a little bit more hands-off, like AI algorithm kind of stuff. What do you think about Amazon attribution for social campaigns like Instagram to drive incremental traffic? What strategy would you use? This one I'm not 100% sure on because I'm not super familiar with external social campaigns. I would say if you are going to run social campaigns, from my understanding, the sales attribution seems to be a little bit low when you create the attribution links, but I would still go ahead and create attribution links for sure. If click-through rate is low, possibly due to main image, so testing other image, what is your sample size for testing each image? Is it a number of impressions, days to run ads, or else? New clothing brand. That's a great question. I would say And I honestly am not sure. If you have the ability to run A/B testing, I would run A/B testing on this. That's going to give you the best data feedback. And honestly, the best creative agencies that I know, what they do is they will run, oh gosh, I'm trying to think of, I know PickFoo's one, Product Pinion is another really good one. I think there's other ones as well where you can do like a poll. So the best creative agencies I know, what they do is they create multiple images. They run a poll to determine the best performing image of those, so the best top 2 performing images, and then they run a split test on Amazon using A/B testing to really run a significant split test. And really, to get a data specific, it's I would say it's not impressions, it would be sessions. So what's the number of traffic? And the amount of traffic that you need to run to get a statistically significant. I don't think I could give you a number because it's not my area of expertise. So I don't try and like put out information if I'm not confident in it. And that would be one of those things. But I would say I would just run the A/B split test. See what that tells you. My sales has plateaued after the 3rd month after launching the product. Search query performance shows the keyword still have high brand purchases. How do I continue the upward trend? You need to figure out why you had a downtrend. So there's only, let's see, you said sales decrease. So there's only 3 reasons your sales have decreased. 1, you got less traffic sessions. 2, you got less conversions. So you have the exact same amount of traffic, but you have less of it converting. Or 3, unless you made a major price change, it's like either say you decrease the price or your average order value decrease. So if you haven't really changed pricing, it's probably not the last one. Typically, it's the first 2. So what I would recommend doing is I would either pull the data from your business reports. And it depends. Whatever you're looking at sales, when you say after launching a product, if it's a standalone product, is it a parent ASIN? Like which product is seeing the decrease? Are you looking at it on a listing level? Are you looking at an account level? Like whatever level you've said, I've seen a decrease, I would go in and I would look at that level. Again, if you're looking at the account, you say, why is it going down? If I'm looking at a parent ASIN, why is it going down? Child ASIN, why is it going down? I'm looking at that. I'm saying, okay, was it a change in the traffic? Because if it's a change in the traffic, that's an ads problem. Or was it a change in the product conversion rate? And in those cases, then if it is a traffic problem, so I'm converting at the same level, it's a traffic problem, then I want to know, why did my traffic go down? What happened? And so from there, if it's an ads problem, I would take a look at my advertising. And I would say, okay, how many, so ads traffic is clicks. I'm not looking at performance metrics. I don't care about ACoS. I want to know why my clicks went down. Because I'm assuming if I had less traffic, my clicks went down. Well, what are the, you have the, like, what do they say? Like the lagging indicators and the leading indicators. What are my leading indicators of clicks? Well, my leading indicators of clicks are impressions. How many times is my ad showing up? And my click-through rate. What percentage of the people who saw my ad clicked? So it's either, if you have less clicks, it's one of those 2 things going down. It's saying what happened. Now, if it's a conversion rate problem, that typically speaks to the offer. So I'm not saying like the listing only, it's the offer. What is an offer? An offer is all of the things that a shopper sees when they're on a listing. So an example would be your reviews are part of your offer. Your price point. Did you increase price? Of course, your main image, your image stack. By the way, whenever you're looking at optimizing, everyone wants to go, like SEO is important, but like your main image is the primary one and then your image stack, depending on title. So I would want to take, like, how do you continue the upward trend? The main thing is you have to figure out why you had a downward trend. What is the root causes of my downward trend? Because if I can understand root causes, I know what I need to focus in on. Because I could tell you in terms of like growing sales. Okay, I said like push for organic ranking. Check to see if you have more keywords, check to see which stuff but I don't know if organic ranking is the problem. I don't know. So you absolutely have to find out what the problem is first, and then you could start working on a solution to it. So hopefully that was helpful. If you have any follow-up like questions or data to that maybe I can look at, let me know. How are you testing conversion rates of campaigns with dynamic down and down? You just pull the data. So what we do is you can't actually pull it on an account level. That's typically how we do it. So we will, you can calculate, honestly, bulk files give you like the best freaking analysis because they literally have like everything in your entire account at your fingertips. So you can actually pull the data of what is the performance of campaigns that have dynamic up and down bidding, what is the performance of the campaigns that have other bidding, and you can break it out like that to look at it. Or if you're running a split test, like say, it's not a true split test, but if you're running a test, you say, okay, this week I'm using dynamic bids down only, and then next week I'm going to use dynamic bids up and down, and then you would track over, say, the next couple weeks, the performance of those. When I'm creating a new campaign or setting up a campaign in our branding account, I usually include only one keyword per campaign or at most 2 to 3 keywords in a single campaign. What strategy do you use? Good question. It depends. So it depends on the strategy. We have started to move a little bit closer to using like say 5 keywords or so in a campaign. If it is a ranking campaign, we like to use only like say 1 to 3 keywords. Depends on the search volume. Search volume's high, I'm using a single keyword campaign. If it's, moderate, then we may group a couple keywords in there. But also it depends. So an example would be, let's say we're running a brand defense campaign. Let's say I'm have a clothing account and there is 20 different listings and they all have small, medium, large. So 4, gosh, and now I have to do math in my head. 4 times, how many did I say? 20, 2, 4, 8, 80. Hopefully I got that right. So there's like 80 different products that I could potentially target because I want to like cross out everything. Do I need to launch? Great. Now I'm going to have to do 80 divided by 5, whatever that ends up being. Like, do I have to put only like a handful of targets and split them out into a campaign because my general use case says I can only have X amount of keywords per campaign? No. In my opinion, that is not using your head. That is being a button pusher and an SOP follower, and you have no critical thinking skills. And that's not how our team operates. Now, if you want to make your life a little harder and launch 60 billion different campaigns, be my guest. I don't like how messy that makes an account. So when it makes logical sense, here's our criteria. If it's not something that we need to control, spend on, like we don't need to tightly control, and our intention is low cost profitability. Example here, low bid auto campaigns, low bid broad match campaigns, brand defensive campaigns. All those campaigns are like we're setting up, but we don't intend to be aggressive on. I am okay with grouping things. However, if in the same vein we're talking product targeting and I say, there's this one competitor, I absolutely must make sure that we're showing up on these campaigns, like on this product page. I'm probably going to put only a handful of those product targets or only say like one product target in that campaign. So there, your conclusion of being a limited number of a campaign inside of campaign I would say is exactly how we do it. Goodness. Okay. My voice is about to go. So we got another solid questions here. I asked question, what does a minimum viable tech stack look like? If we can only use 2 AI platforms to start, which offer the most significant ROI from an Amazon seller? During the Tactical AM Masterclass, but the session ended before they could answer. Yes. So the advice that was given in that session was that Perplexity has access to multiple different, what do they call them? AI models. That's the word I'm looking for. So Perplexity has access to different AI models, so that automatically makes Perplexity probably like the Swiss Army knife of options. For us, if we have to focus on one, I have just gotten used to using ChatGPT, but to be honest, it's becoming sort of it does a lot of stuff, but it doesn't do everything super, super well. Is kind of the way that AI, like ChatGPT, is going. So for that case, I would say probably Perplexity is a solid AI model if you're going to use AI models. In terms of minimum viable tech stack for like an Amazon manager, depends on how much time's on your hands, but you can do a lot. You can do a lot with Excel. You can do a lot with Excel or Google Sheets. You can essentially build your own softwares. Now, in the world of AI, software is going to become a lot easier to like create yourself. So I don't know, a minimum viable tech stack, laptop, data analytics capabilities, email, some sort of spreadsheet software, you could be good. Now, again, can you manage 30 accounts? Or 30 is a lot, but can you manage like, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10 accounts just on that? Maybe. Depends on, how much you're managing yourself. But it's definitely doable. It's definitely doable. But I would say, again, in terms of AI softwares, Perplexity is a solid one. Or if you wanted to look into ChatGPT, that also is a pretty solid one. I do like some of the functionality in building out custom GPTs with ChatGPT. I have found that those capabilities are pretty solid. So I like those. And with that, I do believe I have gotten to the end of the question stack, which is great because my voice is about to croak. Woke up this morning with a sore throat, which totally sucks, but it is what it is. So if anyone else has a last minute question, you want to squeak it in, I will give you a few more seconds. Going once, going twice, but otherwise, I really appreciate everybody joining in here. This has been freaking fantastic. You guys are amazing. You guys always ask solid questions. So make sure you show up here, same time, same place, every next Thursday. I go live here. You can join in, ask whatever Amazon questions, pop them in the chat. We'll pull them up and get you answers. And with that, I will see you all in the next one. Thanks so much, guys. And that wraps up this episode of the Ask Junglr Amazon Advertising Podcast. I hope you found these insights and strategies helpful in your Amazon PPC journey. Remember, if you have a burning Amazon ad question that you'd like answers to, head over to junglr.com/live to join our next live Q&A session. Until next time, keep optimizing those ads and stay hungry.